welcome to the cute little witch cake topper. Now I've made her a few times and I also did a Saracino tutorial for her with these gorgeous little pumpkins. Now I made them with polystyrene for Saracino, but you could fill them with delicious chocolate biscuit cake, and that recipe's in my book, don't forget. And they're just covered with delicious orange Saracino, and it looks as good as it tastes then, doesn't it? So we're going to make this body first, and I'm working with the beautiful light green by Saracino, and I've got 28 grams for the body. Now whenever you use Saracino, the best thing to do is give it a really good knead. Can you see how beautifully soft and pliable it gets? Now all you need to do is to roll it nice and smooth. You can see the measurements you need, and also the measurements you need for the arms and legs. But when I want to make stripes, there's lots of ways you can do it. You can do it by painting them, you can use food colouring pens, or you can use food paints. But I thought today we'd do some strips. Now these strip sizes are up to you. You can make really thin ones, you can make really lovely thick ones, and you could have thin on the arms and thicker on the legs. So first off, you're going to measure around the leg and then cut lots of strips the same size using our first little strip as a template. When you line them up, you can decide how big the spaces are. I give my paste a little bit of a knead to make sure it's nice and flexible, and Saracino is incredible. If your paste is still flexible, then it's not going to need any glue. But can you see I'm using my palette knife to gently pick it up, so that means I don't spoil all the edges. Give it a gentle roll over and trim off the excess, but you do need to come and check whether any is sprung back. You could always take a piece off and replace it as well if you want to. And a good old smoother to finish will just make sure everything is fixed in place. If anything doesn't stick, a little bit of glue might be needed if it's actually started to dry. We made, once upon a time, a Little Red Riding Hood figure with a gorgeous pleated skirt like this. And that's where I got my inspiration from to make my little witch. So I'm rolling out that gorgeous green again. All the measurements are on there. And I'm also rolling out the black. There's no need to cover your green in the meantime, because it really does give you a really long working time with Saracino. Cut the edge of this black straight. And we're only going to be neatening the bottom half because we're going to be trimming off the top. And to make those pleats, all you really need to do is some paint brushes. But before we start, make sure those two pieces are rolled together. So roll the very end nice and tightly around the paintbrush. Place another paintbrush next to it, and the next paintbrush goes underneath again. And you're going to pull that nice and tightly together. Be really gentle. And then tuck it underneath. So the first one goes as to position 3. Tuck it underneath. Give it a gentle squeeze. Take the first one back out and slide it back underneath. So you're basically just moving from side to side all the time. And a really good tip, if you feel your Saracino is getting a little bit cold and is starting to set, gently wave a hairdryer over it and that'll soften it back down again. So I'm going to do a little bit longer, and then we'll just go on high speed for you. But you can see I'm just very gently pressing it down, making sure that pleat is nice and neat. Taking the first one, sliding it underneath, and then tucking it in. Now sometimes you need to put them on top, sometimes you need to put them underneath. But can you see those lovely pleats starting to form? The main thing is to keep it nice and flat. So taking the first one, sliding it underneath. There, and then you pull the first one and press it on the top. So it's basically you're either pulling the paste up or you're pushing the paste down. And all you need is 3 dowling rods, 3 straws, 3, as you can see, paint brushes with the same thickness for the handles. But it really does make a lovely pleat, doesn't it? Now I also made more than I needed because I was going to be going and making another little witch. And what you can do once you've gone to all this effort, what you don't need, you can put it straight into a sealed sandwich bag, get all that air out, and then you can literally go and use it straight away next time. And what I tend to do again when I take it out of the sandwich bag is just gently run the hairdryer over it, and it's going to be absolutely fine to use and very pliable. But you can see all the pleats are really close at the same size. Every now and again I might do one that's not so perfect, but as I finish doing them I gently pull it all together. And the very last one you tack all the way around the paintbrush just as you did for the first one. Now can you see those two little white dots? I'm going to show you how to fix that. What that means is that paste was too thin in that point, and Saracino blends so gorgeously. So all I need to do is to get a spare bit of Saracino, the same colour as the gap, place it on where I need to fix. There we are. Watch this magic fix now. Flatten it a little bit first, place it where you need it to go. You don't need any glue for this because it's still pliable, and then just blend it in. How much easier is that than thinking, oh no, I've got to start all over again. And that PME Dresden, there are other brands that do it as well. Gem does one, Squire's Kitchen does one. Now, those legs that we already did, give them a little roll between your hands to soften them, and then just bend them at the knee, and it just makes it a little bit easier. Can you see how much I got spare? Now, I am going to be pushing the top of the skirt together, and the bottom is therefore going to spread. And I've got my little cornflour puff container, which is what I'm going to sit her on to work. And I'm going to gently pinch the top of the skirt together. Can you see I'm making sure those pleats stay nice and smooth? Really squeeze and pinch that top all together, and they'll all be joined into one piece. There, smooth away so you make sure everything is not going to crack. It's nice and happy as it is. And then trim off the excess. And then what you got is that shape will get hidden, don't worry, but you can see where it's all joined together. You can keep your spare bits, but if you need them together, all you're actually going to get is a very, very dark green. So it's actually quite nice to just keep them and cut them up into little slices, stick them on your workboard together, roll them back together again, like I'm doing now, look. And you'll get really lovely, what they call millefeuille paste. So you see the different patterns in there. So I rolled that into a sausage. I would fix them all together, roll it out, and I'd have really nice pattern fabric. So you can make flowers out of it, all sorts. And in my book, I actually make the cabbage leaf in this method. Now I want it to sort of, I've got to decide how long the skirt wants to be. So I wanted it to be a cute little girl, like knee-length skirt. You can decide whether you want to see the knees or whether you want the skirt to curve over the knees. That is totally up to you. But how short you cut that skirt, don't cut the bottom, leave that bottom as nice and beautiful as you made it. But you can just trim off the top of that skirt, and that'll just make it so much neater for you. And as I mentioned, you can keep the spare piece in a bag, but likewise, if you need to go and cook food or something, put this skirt in a sandwich bag and seal it shut, and then you could come back to it in a little while. Just making sure all those pleats are fixed together really nice and tightly. And can you see it's got a nice curved edge to it? And if you feel you need to neaten it, can you see? You can add a little bit of black around the back. Grab your Dresden, and this is the wide side, which is actually the Dresden. Don't forget the other side is called the veining tool. But what it means is I haven't got any stripy green bits sticking out now. Now it looked like the back of her skirt. And that Dresden is just beautifully smoothing that into place. Can you see how pliable this paste still is as well? So easy to move. So I'm going to be popping that on there. And you can put these legs in now, and you can check that they are in the position that you want to be. But you can see where the pleats raise are where I slide in a leg. So a leg will literally go underneath the pleat. And you can use your Dresden tool, as you saw me stretching on the tool, you can push it into one of those pleats to make sure there's enough room for you to push the leg into. Now, while this is all going on, I'm actually teaching somebody, so we had such a lovely time, and she did an amazing job of her little witch. She was so cute. Now you can decide on the age of your figure here, maybe 2 or 3 years old. What do? They sit with their legs quite far apart and they swing their legs side to side. If you want her to look quite elegant as a teenage little girl, you can have her knees together and she can cross her little ankles. Totally up to you. But you think of children and they sit sprawled on the ground with their little toes sticking up in the air, and that's what we'll end up doing. So all you need to do after that is roll it together. Can you see the gorgeous patterns you'd have in your fabric? So now we need to add the body on this little girl. So you can add a little bit of edible glue underneath, but as you can see, all I'm going to do is sit her onto the back, and that is going to completely hide all of those workings, which is why I added that little bit of black paste onto the back just to neaten it. So cut the bottom nice and straight, and I'm doing children where they're wider in their body than they are front to back. So they're wider on the width and front to back is narrower, just to give them that sort of childlike shape. There we go. And don't forget, if you're doing Father Christmas, I always give him a lovely big belly. Now you can do this on top of your cake straight away. So that is quite often what I did for years and years and years. I would be making my figure on top of the finished cake. So I tended to use skewers for wedding cakes. For children's cakes, I would temporarily put a skewer in while parts of it dried, and then I would remove it before I put the head on. Different method slightly, because obviously you'd have to make a hole in the body, pinch a point at the bottom of the neck and then slot that in. But that's a really nice way of doing it. You can also use cocktail sticks, but don't forget it's totally inedible then once you've put a cocktail stick in. Now with these arms, you can decide what the arm positions are going to be. You're going to need some edible glue. So I've got my glue brush there, and you can decide whether she's putting her hands down on the side of the cake. If you're making a figure that's going to be moved, I would recommend that her arms are on her lap, because that way then those arms are going to be nicely fixed into position and it just is so much easier to move her. So any of the pieces you can pop into your little spares box and you can make little millifory patterns with those as well. So if you have a round ball, you could change into a teardrop and then you could put them in a flower shape with a different colour ball in the centre. So make sure your body is nice and stable. Make sure she doesn't feel like she's going anywhere. Make sure those legs are attached. Can you see I've got them kicked off at the angle? So I need to make sure that the arms are still pliable. So I'm feeling the paste now to make sure they're nice and soft. And I'm deciding where I'd like those arms to be. So as I mentioned, did I want them off down to the side, which is what I did on the original one on the pumpkin. But this little girl is going to have her hands on her lap. So if you'd like to see the original tutorial, head on over to the Saracino website. So I'm hollowing out where the hands are going to go. And I'm using the Cerart hard point silicone tool, but you can use any cone tool or even the back of a paintbrush. So can you see that nice little curve? So I'm hollowing out, making sure that the shape is right, and you can roll the shape against the tool as well. If you're having both the arms the same, do what you do to one, you do to the other. But can you see I've just pinched a little section on the top of that arm, and that is going to create a socket system. So a socket system is a really sensible way of fixing your arms or your legs or ears into the side of the head. And that would be, you'd have a socket and a plug. So I've made the plug on the top of the arms at the shoulder. So right at the top, you see that little green section. The bottom's where the hand's going to be, and that's the elbow. Make sure the elbow is nice and pointed. And then at the top, we're going to pinch. Can you see? Pinch and squeeze. And it looks like a little nose on the end. But that is going to go into the very top of the body. So feel up on your shoulder. See how high that shoulder is on the body. And make sure that you put the shoulder as high on your figure as well. And you can put glue inside. I would recommend it because we made our body a little while ago now, didn't we? So pop the glue inside. and slide the arm in, but don't completely crush the arm, just make it look like it belongs there. So again, stand in front of the mirror, watch the way your clothing flows, watch the way your arm comes from your shoulders, and just try and match the shape really. But can you see how pliable those arms still are? It really is a great paste, but if I came down the following morning and it was regular temperature, not too hot, not sticky and humid, then that would be dry. So make sure all the joins are secure, get the arms into the position you'd like them to be, and if you wanted to raise them, you could even prop those up with a bit of kitchen paper. So that skirt is going to be put into a sandwich bag, as I mentioned, and therefore that can keep for a good few days until you need to use it. See, a good Ziploc sandwich bag, make sure you keep the shape of the piece that you're making, and I tend to fold it first before I get the air out. There we go, that's ready for your next figure, so you can carry on making this one while that is safe in your cupboard. Now we're going to go nice and slow with the head. I'm going to make the head and the neck in one. So can you see I've just pinched at the very bottom of my head, and I pinch and pull a little chin in there, and I'm constantly stroking the paste, constantly smoothing it. But I'm pressing the back of my hand in because I want the top of the head to be nice and round, and she's going to eventually end up with a little pointed chin on a heart-shaped face. There, can you see? So you can see the chin lifted up away from the neck, but the top of the head is lovely and round. Children, the eye socket area is generally in the middle of the face. So press a paintbrush handle in and roll around, and you can see me stroking this shape with my fingers to make sure there's no paintbrush handle texture on there. So just smooth our paste, keep it nice and pliable, and just to get away any additional marks really. But you can see it now gives her forehead, it gives her cheeks, and it gives the temples at the side of the head. Quite a nifty little way of doing it. You can use the small side of your ball tool. This one's by Squires, but the PME one is exactly the same size. And it's about 4mm thereabouts, so it's the same size as one of those little dragees or dragees, which are roughly 4 to 5mm. And I've just got two little black ones there. And that means all I have to do to make eyes is to drop them in. But don't forget, you've got spare black paste there. You can always roll two little balls of black and let them set before you put them in. And you can see me again stroking the face, not only to get rid of my finger marks, but to keep the face nice and pliable as well. I've cut a tiny bit off the neck because this is going to be our nose. Really easy way. So you roll in a little oval shape. You see, cute little oval shape. She's going to have a cute little nose. And it's stuck to my finger, which means it will stick to itself. Look at that. Really simple, cute little nose. You don't have to make 100% lifelike characters, but just to bring it up a little bit, pop little nostrils in. You could put an eyelid on over that black ball, and that would elevate it up as well. Head on over to my Captain Tom Moore tutorial and you'll see how you can do really detailed faces, but she's just going to be a nice little cute one. So she'd be great as a cupcake topper, and I know she's a big topper, but it would just be loads of fun. So this is like when you want to add some shapes, we're just going to pop a little dent in. Now what that's going to do, that's going to give us the chin area, and using the curved shape of your bone tool, it's already the right shape, isn't it? But can you see, we already know where that mouth is going to go. That is the easiest way to do it. Then you want to go down from the corners of her mouth down to the jaw. And look how lovely and protruding her little chin is now. And her cheeks are up, which means she's smiling. Such a lovely, easy way to do it. But wherever you use a tool on the face, always smooth it away with your thumb or your finger. And it just gives you a much smoother texture. Now, with this little girl, we still want to open up the mouth. Look at that, instant mouth, isn't it? Because you'd already done that work. But we're going to open up this mouth. So you could remove the paste, but there's absolutely no need. Watch what we're going to do next. So we're going to take the wide side of the Dresden and we're going to push it in. And the reason I cut the top and the bottom with a scalpel was because now it's given me a really neat edge. So before you go any further, you're going to use that Dresden and make sure you've got the corners nice and sharp so it makes the smile really straight. And can you see what I've pressed that tool? By pressing it in, can you see it gives a little bit of a lip, and you lift it up to the corner of the mouth and it will really sharpen up that side, and turn it around and lift up to the other corner. See, so that bit is literally below your lip and above your chin. It's just that little dent in there. There we are, see, sits in there really nicely. And that just pressing in there just gives us the nice little lip texture. Now you can accentuate that lip texture, but I'm keeping it nice and soft because this is quite a simple face. But what we would like to do is to put some darkness inside the mouth to make it a bit more obvious. So to check the size of your piece, take a very small ball of paste, roll it into a grain of rice and hold it against the mouth. And if it looks too big, it always is. If it doesn't drop inside the mouth, it's just too big. And can you see all I've done now is just gently place it into position. But how much better does that look? Instantly you can see that her mouth is open and smiling. But it does look better if you add some teeth onto there as well. So that's what we're going to do next. I'm also going to smooth her cheeks as well. Can you see, lifting her cheeks up? You can also stroke the upper lip a little bit as well, using the back of the Dresden to soften all your edges. Just make sure she looks nice and smiley before you go any further. The teeth are a really, really tiny hair-like piece of paste. And can you see, I'm just cutting it, and you're going to test it a few times. Must have dropsy there today. Check that the mouth is straight enough to put it in. So when you softened it, you might have squashed it down a little bit. And then you're going to paint a little bit of edible glue because these are going to be her top teeth. Now, I'm checking the length again. So I use that paintbrush to check the length as well. And you can use a glue brush to pick it up. Can you see how big it is compared to my Dresden? Just to give you an idea. A fine glue brush doesn't always pick it up. So what I tend to do is to use a slightly larger glue brush to pick it up and then take that fine glue brush and neaten it back into place again. You can also press the very edges of the Dresden because what happens with the top teeth, they curve around, don't they, for your upper jaw. So it's not actually a straight line. Accentuating the laughter lines there, so she's making sure she looks nice and smiley, but you can even lift up the corner of the mouth. So can you see, place the edge of the paintbrush handle, that's the edge of my Cerart tool, and push up, and can you see it gives her lovely chubby smiley cheeks. I'm always reshaping that chin as well. Now this is just a brown fractal colours pen, so you can draw on the eyebrows, which is nice and easy for you to do. But you can also dust either Kitty Nose Pink by Fractal Colours or a blush pink, or Saracino do a really lovely pink as well. And it's the perfect colour for lips and for cheeks. And you can also pop a little bit on the end of the nose as well, because that always looks really cute. But this is a dry brush. I'm not painting, I'm just dusting. So this head is ready to go on. So I'm going to use a cone tool or the Cerart hard point to make a little hollow into their neck. And you're going to push it into place. Now I always test it first, see if I like it. Quite often I might take it back off, snip a little bit off if I think the neck is too long, readjust it and pop it back on. You can also change the angle of the head if you wish as well. So if you think to yourself, oh, do you know what, I don't like the way the head is angled that way, don't be afraid to adjust it. So just literally take it back off again and you can adjust it. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. So literally smooth the corners, make sure you hollow out the neck again. But if you can still see the hole, you may not need to. But I've actually used a little bit of the doweling rod, the skewer, so it's exactly the same size as the hole I needed. And when I turned around, can you see, I thought, oh, she's going to look so cute if I put her head that way. Now I make the hat all in one piece, but when I do my Halloween cupcakes, which is another video you can head on over and see, I actually made the hat in 2 pieces. So I'm just showing you the length so you can measure it against your Cerart tool. But can you see from starting from a cone, all I've done is flatten the brim down onto the table. I do use a palette knife to lift it up off the table because it is going to get really stuck, and to hollow out the inside to make it nice and lightweight and also fit on the head easier, you can use your PME bulbous cone to do that, and it's going to keep it a nice shape. But this is the black Saracino and you really can't beat it. It's so pliable. You can get it to be super smooth, but you can also use a Dresden tool and add lovely creases. You can pop the brim nice and low, or you can lift the brim up, or you can bend the little point over on the top. But before her hat goes on, she really needs some hair. So I've got some Saracino, and we're going to be starting off with 20 grams to do round the side of the head anyway. But what I do with browns and blacks and even the blues, because there's such a lot of cocoa butter in it and it's a really gorgeous strong paste, I chop it up into little bits and pieces, and then you can see how easily I can blend it together. So I am dividing my hair up into 2 10-gram pieces, so 20 grams altogether just for the back of the hair. And there's actually no need for it to go on the top because the hat is going to be on there and you can trim away the excess paste. But can you see I've wrapped it around, trimming off the excess with a palette knife, and you can blend it all in. You can add markings on there using your Dresden if you want to, but you're not actually going to see much of this hair at all because the hat is going to be covering it. And in order to make the fringe, I'm going to take tiny little pieces of paste, roll it so it's soft into a sausage, and I'm just going to be laying it onto her head. Oops, sticky fingers. You can use a little bit of cornflour, by the way, if your fingers are sticky, but I'm actually trying to keep the paste nice and sticky because I want it to stick easily. Can you see how easily that went on? And you can give it a little twiddle, a little curl. You can decide how far down it goes as well. You can decide whether she's just got a couple of little tendrils escaping from her little pigtails, or she has got a full-on fringe. You can change the placement of it because if you think about it, the hat is going to be on the top again, so you're going to have to cut off any excess. There we are, so let's add one on to the other side. Give it a nice little twist as well for a bit of movement, and as you can see, keep all those spare bits because you can roll them back up and make more bits of fringe. So it's actually a very sparing thing not to put too much paste on the top of the head. Come winter time, we'll be doing a snowman as well. So I'll show you my trick, which I've mentioned in previous tutorials, of cutting the top of the head off and replacing it with the hat. So this is essentially what I'm doing here. I'm not going to be using this very top of the head because the hat is going to be covering it. So the less paste sticking out and getting in the way, the better. And those little tendrils look so cute if you give them a little bend on the end. You can leave them straight by all means, but I'm going to be giving the little ponytails or little pigtails a little curl up at the end. So I want the fringe to have that as well. So let's add a few more pieces on and then I shall show you a close-up so you can see what she's looking like. There you go. And that little bit almost in her eye. That's just so cute. So we're back to that gorgeous lime green colour, and I'm going to say, please wash your hands. I've washed my hands off camera at least a few times, and I've still got black food colouring in my nails. I can feel it on the side of my fingers. But we're going to make little hollows because those little teardrop shapes of green, only a gram each. They're going to slide with a pointed end into the hole. Then you're going to get the Cerart tool and create a hollow. And I'll show you the hollow in a second because that is the easiest way, is the plug and socket method that I mentioned earlier. How easy is that? Now, we've got large bunches here and all it is a sausage of paste, which is a teardrop at one end, and you sharpen the top. And the top has got to be nice and pointy just to fit in. Do you remember how we did with the arms? Exactly the same method. And that little twist at the end, there we go. So that ages her. I think that makes her look a lot older. So you can give the fringe a little bit of movement by using your veining tool and just pushing it underneath the fringe to lift it up nicely. Always check the hat, but I wanted her to look like a little girl, didn't I? So watch this now. This is what we do. How much cuter is she with those tiny little pigtails? Absolutely gorgeous. And that hat just fits a treat. There you go. And although I put shoes on her last time, I wanted her to have her little tights showing, so just curl up those little toes. I really hope you enjoyed that. Click like and subscribe, and I will see you soon.